Now, there seems to be no end in sight to the country's water crisis. Reservoirs in Tshwane are running dry. The city says there was no overnight supply from Rand water to the Garsfontein Reservoir. The municipality is blaming the poor supply on the ongoing power cuts. Senior reporter Silindelo Masikane has been tracking this. She's been up and about in Tshwane, but she's back now with me in our studios here in Johannesburg. Good afternoon, Sli. Welcome to today. So what's the latest on Tshwane's water woes?
Well, it seems they're set to continue at least for the next couple of days. As we understand, the city of Tshwane has released another statement late yesterday, Bradan, indicating that their reservoirs are still running quite low. In fact, the Grootfontein reservoir is sitting at 2%, and they're saying that they're not the ones to blame, and that the issue is really from the supply of Rand water, and that the water utility has implemented some restrictions. However, they are not receiving, their reservoirs are just not filling up as quickly as they should. And of course, we've got several areas that have been impacted, many of them in the east of Pretoria, Soshanguve as well, Laudium too, that's in the west of Pretoria as well, that's been heavily affected. We were there with my colleague Jill Matlala this morning, and it seems the situation remains the same in that sense, in that residents are either being forced to buy water or wait for water tankers to arrive in their areas in order to be able to get some kind of relief. Let's just take a listen to what the Tshwane MMC for Utilities had to say to me this morning with regards to the conversations being had with Rand Water.
We've been struggling with a number of reservoirs across the length and breadth of the city, from Soshanguve right the way across, including Waterkloof, Monument Park, Eladis Park, Moraleta Park, and then all the way out to the far east, Mooikloof, Grootfontein, and the hills. And the issue is obviously to do with the Rand Water's restriction or limitation of flow on the water meters at City of Tshwane, but there are also problems seemingly within their system and very low levels within their system at their key reservoirs, and this is impacting on the pressures that we are receiving. And the systems are obviously dependent not just on water supply but at pressure, and so that's having a negative impact.
Silindelo, what about the impact of the ongoing power blackouts?
So it seems that's also exacerbating the situation to some extent, Bradan. We understand that because the load shedding schedule will affect the pumping stations, that means that water cannot fill up into these reservoirs as quickly as they should. And so the MMC was telling me that, in fact, they are looking at some kind of backup power for these reservoirs moving forward. Let's take a listen.
Absolutely, load shedding causes us major headaches, and aside from the damage it does to the electrical system, it obviously impacts, and particularly on the higher levels of load shedding from 4 upwards, in terms of your ability to then pump water where needed, because it's not all just reliant on gravity. So we have to be able to pump water. Where possible, we do try and exempt those sorts of pump stations on water and sewer, for that matter, but it's not always possible or practical to do so, and so that does have a significant impact on our operations.
Okay, I mean, water is very important, Silindelo, every day. And what relief now are they providing in Tshwane for the local residents? And what are the experts they're saying about all of this?
Well, of course, for the most part, water tankers are the immediate relief that's being provided by the city of Tshwane. But I think residents, for the most part, are actually taking on that cost themselves. Many of them are resorting to having to get bottled water, so it's not coming very cheap. And the residents mostly who are affected are in the high-lying areas in the east of Pretoria. And in fact, those areas as well have a lot of plots, so people do own a lot of animals there. Those were the frustrations I picked up earlier on, Bradan. But also experts are saying that, in fact, what we're seeing in terms of the instability in these municipalities when it comes to leadership is only making the situation worse and is only going to make the situation worse moving forward. In fact, the one expert I spoke to says we're just seeing a small, minute example in terms of what we're seeing in Johannesburg with coalitions just simply not working, that's going to trickle down to how services are delivered in these municipalities, saying that, in fact, in order to turn the situation around, we need those with the actual technical skills to be put in place. And at this point, he says it doesn't look like that's going to happen because politicians are, politicking rather than actually providing the services they should to the residents of their various municipalities. Let's take a listen.
Well, the solution would be to reinstate technically competent people and hold them accountable. Now, that's very glib and that's one sentence and it sounds very simple. But if we just look a little bit wider at the moment now, we find that most of these water problems are in fact municipal related. So while the Department of Water and Sanitation has a national responsibility, it cannot be responsible for supplying water to the household. That's a municipal function. And the municipal reticulation and storage, that's a municipal function. And now we just look no further than what's happening in Johannesburg at the moment, where there's the leadership of the mayoral leadership has collapsed. There's infighting, there's faction fights, there's different coalition governments that are coming and going. You cannot expect to provide technical solutions to extremely complex problems while there is this instability at leadership level. So as far as I'm concerned, until such time as we can get politically stable leadership in place that understands the complexity of what they're dealing with, until that happens, I'm afraid I can only see this problem getting worse, not getting better.